God, I don't know. Maybe tonight. If I can get through tonight, that'll keep me going.
For years, Robert Redford stayed quiet about what really happened during the making of Jeremiah Johnson. On the surface, the film looks calm, controlled, and powerful. But behind that finished product, the reality was far more difficult than most people realize. Now, Redford is finally opening up, and what he says changes how you see the entire film. Join us as we uncover the truth behind Jeremiah Johnson and hear what Robert Redford had to say after all these years. Early life. Robert Redford was born in Santa Monica, California in 1936, and at first glance, his early life seemed fairly normal. He grew up in a middle-class household with a father who worked as an accountant and a mother who supported the family at home. But beneath that stable surface, things were not always easy. His relationship with his parents, especially his father, was often distant. His father believed in discipline and structure, while Redford naturally leaned toward freedom and independence. This created tension, even if it wasn't always openly discussed. As a child and teenager, Redford struggled to find his place. School didn't interest him much, and he didn't stand out academically. He has openly admitted that he wasn't focused or motivated during those years. Instead of planning for the future, he often lived in the moment, which led to a lack of direction. This confusion about what he wanted from life became more obvious as he grew older. There were also early signs of rebellion. Redford began pushing against rules and expectations, choosing to go his own way rather than follow a traditional path. This behavior eventually caught up with him. After enrolling at the University of Colorado, things quickly went downhill. He became more interested in partying than studying, and it ultimately led to his expulsion. This was a turning point, but not in a clear or immediate way. After leaving college, Redford entered a drifting phase. He traveled to Europe, spending time in countries like France and Italy. During this period, he didn't have a stable plan or career path. Instead, he explored different interests and tried to understand himself better. It was during this time that he discovered art, especially painting. This became his first real passion and gave him a sense of purpose he had been missing. Art opened a new door for him. Through painting and later exposure to performance and storytelling, Redford slowly began to see a different future. It wasn't a sudden transformation, but it planted the seed for what would come next. But what finally pushed him from wandering artist to serious actor is where things start to get interesting. After spending time in Europe trying to figure out his life, Robert Redford returned to the United States with a clearer sense of direction. Art had given him confidence, but he realized he wanted something more active and expressive. That's when acting started to feel like a real option. It wasn't an easy or obvious choice, but it was something he felt drawn to. He moved to New York City, where he began studying acting seriously. He trained at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts and also attended classes at the Pratt Institute. This was a big shift from his earlier life. For the first time, he committed himself fully to learning a craft. Acting required discipline, focus, and emotional control, things he had struggled with before. Slowly, he began to grow into it. Redford started his career on stage, performing in theater productions. These early roles helped him build confidence and understand how to connect with an audience. Theater also taught him patience, because success didn't come overnight. He had to work his way up, taking smaller roles and learning from every performance. From there, he began getting small roles on television. Shows like The Twilight Zone and other popular series of the time gave him exposure. While these roles were not major, they helped him get noticed. Still, the industry was highly competitive, and standing out was difficult. There were many talented actors trying to make it, and Redford was still finding his unique presence. Over time, his persistence paid off. He began moving from television and stage work into film, opening the door to bigger opportunities. And once Hollywood finally noticed him, everything started to change fast. Rise to fame. Robert Redford didn't become a star overnight, but once his career started to move, it picked up speed quickly. After years of smaller roles in television and theater, He began landing parts in films that finally showed what he could do. Movies like Barefoot in the Park helped introduce him to a wider audience and showed his charm and screen presence. People began to notice that he had something different. He was calm, confident, and easy to watch. His real breakthrough came with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. In this film, Redford played the Sundance Kid, a quiet but skilled outlaw. The movie was a huge success, both with audiences and at the box office. It didn't just make money, it made Redford a household name. Suddenly, he wasn't just another actor trying to make it. He was one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. A big part of the film's success came from his partnership with Paul Newman. The two had strong on-screen chemistry, and their performances felt natural and balanced. Newman was already an established star, and working alongside him helped raise Redford's profile even more. Their collaboration made the film memorable and showed that Redford could hold his own next to one of the industry's biggest names. After that, offers started coming in quickly. Redford became known as a reliable leading man who could carry a film. Studios trusted him, and audiences showed up to watch him. This made him a bankable star, meaning his name alone could help a movie succeed. But with success came pressure. The more popular he became, the more was expected of him. Every role mattered, and every performance was closely watched. Fame also brought constant attention from the media and the public, which wasn't always easy to handle. And just as his career was reaching new heights, his personal life started to feel the weight of it all. As Robert Redford became more famous, the public started to see him in a very specific way. The media quickly labeled him as one of Hollywood's most attractive and desirable stars. Magazines, interviews, and TV appearances all pushed the same image. He was the perfect man. This wasn't just about his acting anymore. It was about his looks, his charm, and the way he carried himself on screen. With that image came intense attention, especially from female fans. Redford received constant admiration, letters, and public attention wherever he went. His fan base grew rapidly, and many people focused more on his appearance than his work. While this helped his popularity, it also created a version of him that didn't fully match who he really was. Privately, Redford felt uncomfortable with this label. He didn't see himself as perfect, and he didn't like being reduced to just his looks. He wanted to be taken seriously as an actor and artist, not just as a symbol of attraction. This created an internal conflict. On one side, there was the public image everyone expected him to live up to. On the other hand, there was his real personality, which was more reserved and thoughtful. This gap between public and private life started to affect him emotionally. It also had an impact on his personal relationships. Being constantly admired by others made it harder to maintain normal connections. There was pressure, misunderstanding, and sometimes distance between him and the people closest to him. Over time, this image became something he had to manage carefully, even when he didn't agree with it. And as the attention kept growing, it began to put serious strain on his marriage. Marriage to Lola Van Wagenen. Before the height of his fame, Robert Redford found stability in his personal life when he met and married Lola Van Wagenen. The two married in 1958, long before Redford became a major Hollywood name. At the time, their relationship was grounded and private, built on shared values and a desire for a simple life. In the early years, they focused on building a family together, and Redford often spoke about how important that sense of normalcy was to him. As their family grew, so did Redford's career. What started as small acting roles quickly turned into bigger opportunities, and with that came more time away from home. At first, they tried to balance it. Lola managed much of the home life while Redford worked to establish himself. But as his fame increased, that balance became harder to maintain. The demands of Hollywood were constant. Long filming schedules, travel, and public appearances meant Redford was often absent. Even when he was physically present, the pressure of his career followed him home. This created emotional distance between him and Lola. They were still connected, but the relationship began to feel strained under the weight of his growing success. Public attention made things even more difficult. As Redford became a well-known figure, their private life was no longer fully private. Media coverage, fan attention, and constant scrutiny added pressure to their marriage. Lola, who preferred a quieter life, had to deal with a level of exposure she never asked for. This difference in lifestyle and expectations slowly created tension between them. Over time, the gap between Redford's public life and private life continued to grow. What once felt stable began to feel complicated and difficult to manage. And as the pressure kept building, it pushed him toward habits that would only make things worse. Alcoholism. As fame continued to grow, Robert Redford found himself dealing with pressure that didn't go away. With every new film, expectations became higher. He was no longer just trying to succeed. He was expected to stay at the top. This constant demand began to take a toll on him, both mentally and physically. During this period, he started relying more on alcohol as a way to cope. At first, it may not have seemed serious. Drinking was common in Hollywood, especially in social settings and after long work days. But over time, it became more frequent and more necessary for him. The stress of maintaining his image, combined with long hours and public attention, made it difficult for him to relax in a healthy way. Alcohol became a way to deal with exhaustion and emotional pressure. There were also deeper triggers behind this behavior. Redford struggled with the gap between who he really was and how the world saw him. Being labeled as a perfect leading man added pressure that he didn't feel comfortable with. He wanted to be taken seriously as an artist, but often felt reduced to his appearance and fame. This internal conflict created frustration and emotional strain, which added to his reliance on alcohol. As his drinking increased, it began to affect different parts of his life. His behavior could become distant or unpredictable, especially in personal situations. Relationships, including his marriage, were affected by this change. At work, even though he remained professional, the pressure behind the scenes was growing. It became harder to manage everything at once. Despite the warning signs, Redford didn't immediately confront the problem. Like many people in similar situations, there was a level of denial. He continued working, continued appearing in public, and avoided fully acknowledging how serious things had become. But there were close calls, moments where it was clear that something wasn't right and couldn't continue this way. These warning signs slowly built up, making it harder to ignore the reality of the situation. And eventually, he reached a point where he had to face it head-on. Turning point. At a certain point, Robert Redford could no longer ignore what was happening. The pressure, the drinking, and the emotional strain had all built up, and it became clear that something needed to change. Making the decision to seek help was not easy. It required him to step away from the image he had built and admit that he was struggling. But this choice marked an important turning point in his life. Entering recovery meant facing more than just the habit of drinking. It forced him to confront deeper emotional and psychological issues. During rehabilitation, he had to deal with feelings he had pushed aside for years: stress, self-doubt, and the pressure of living up to expectations. This process was uncomfortable and at times overwhelming, but it was necessary. For someone used to being in control, learning to open up and accept help was a major challenge. Through this experience, Redford began to understand the role of control and ego in his life. He realized that trying to manage everything on his own had only made things worse. Letting go of that mindset allowed him to see the importance of vulnerability. Being honest with himself became a key part of his recovery. Sobriety gradually changed how he viewed both his life and his career. He became more aware of his limits and more focused on maintaining balance. Instead of chasing constant success, he started to value stability and personal well-being. This shift influenced the kinds of roles he chose and how he approached his work. Even after recovery, the struggle didn't completely disappear. There were still moments of difficulty and reminders of the past, but he was better equipped to handle them. And just as he was starting to rebuild himself, his personal life faced another major turning point: cracks in the marriage. By the time Robert Redford began to regain control over his personal struggles, the damage to his marriage with Lola Van Wagenen had already taken root. What once felt stable and supportive had slowly started to break down over the years. The change didn't happen all at once. It was gradual, shaped by long periods of distance, emotional strain, and the pressures that came with fame. Redford's rising career meant he was often away from home. Film shoots, promotions, and constant public attention made it difficult for him to be fully present. At the same time, his struggles with alcohol created additional distance. Even when he tried to reconnect, the gap between them had grown. Lola had carried much of the responsibility at home, and over time, that imbalance became harder to ignore. Their relationship began to feel less like a partnership and more like two separate lives moving in different directions. The emotional toll was heavy on both sides. For Redford, there was guilt and frustration. For Lola, there was likely a sense of isolation and exhaustion. They had built a life together, but maintaining it under those conditions became increasingly difficult. While the public still saw Redford as a successful and admired figure, the reality at home was far more complicated. When their marriage eventually ended, the public narrative remained relatively quiet and controlled. There were no major scandals or dramatic headlines. From the outside, it appeared like a respectful separation, but privately, it marked the end of a long and difficult chapter. Divorce brought a sense of finality, but also reflection. For Redford, it was a moment to confront what had gone wrong and what needed to change moving forward. In time, he found love again with Sibyl Sagers. This second relationship came at a very different stage in his life. He was older, more self-aware, and more focused on maintaining balance. Unlike his first marriage, this one was more private and grounded. There was less pressure from the outside and a stronger effort to protect their personal space. His approach to love had clearly changed. He understood the importance of being present, of setting boundaries, and of not letting work take over everything. The lessons from his past shaped how he handled this relationship. He made conscious efforts to avoid the same mistakes, focusing more on stability and mutual understanding. Enter Jeremiah Johnson. Around this time, Redford also became more selective about his work. This led him to take on projects that felt meaningful to him, including Jeremiah Johnson. The story of a man choosing isolation and survival in the wilderness spoke to him on a personal level. It reflected themes he understood: distance, self-discovery, and the desire to step away from the noise of the world. Going into the project, expectations were high. Redford saw it as more than just another role. It was something deeper, something that connected with his own experiences. But what he didn't fully expect was how difficult the process would be. The themes of isolation and survival were simple but powerful. The film showed what happens when a person is stripped of comfort and forced to rely only on themselves. There is very little talking in the story. Instead, it focuses on quiet moments, daily struggles, and small victories. Redford believed this kind of storytelling could connect with people in a different way. He also felt a personal connection to the character. Like Johnson, he had experienced periods of uncertainty and searching in his early life. He understood what it meant to feel out of place and to look for meaning. That connection helped him approach the role with sincerity. Going into the project, Redford had high expectations. He wanted the film to feel real, not staged. He pushed for authenticity in how the story was told, including filming in actual mountain locations instead of controlled studio sets. He believed that the environment itself would become part of the story. At the time, this approach was ambitious. It meant more risk, more effort, and less comfort for everyone involved. But for Redford, it felt necessary to bring the story to life in a way that matched his vision. Reality behind the scenes. The decision to film in real mountain locations shaped everything that followed. The production took place in remote areas with heavy snow, freezing temperatures, and difficult terrain. These weren't controlled environments. Every day depended on weather and conditions that no one could fully predict. The cold was constant. Cast and crew had to work in deep snow for long hours. Simple actions like walking or setting up equipment became physically demanding. The environment slowed everything down, which made the shooting schedule harder to maintain. There were also serious logistical challenges. Transporting cameras, costumes, and supplies into remote locations took time and effort. Roads were limited, and some areas were only accessible with special vehicles or long hikes. If something went wrong, fixing it wasn't quick or easy. The long shooting schedule added another layer of strain. Days were often extended because delays were common. People worked until they were exhausted, then had to do it again the next day in the same harsh conditions. Over time, this led to tension among the cast and crew. Fatigue made people less patient. Small problems felt bigger than they were. While everyone was committed to finishing the film, the pressure created moments of frustration. For Redford, who was both the lead actor and deeply invested in the project, the weight of responsibility made the experience even more intense. The physical challenges were only part of the story. The mental strain was just as significant. The isolation of the filming locations mirrored the life of Jeremiah Johnson. Redford spent long periods in quiet, remote settings with limited contact with the outside world. This began to affect how he felt and thought during the shoot. Mental fatigue built up slowly. The combination of cold, exhaustion, and repetition made it harder to stay focused. Emotional stress also increased as the production continued. There was little opportunity to step away and reset. At times, the line between the character and real life became less clear. Redford was playing a man who lives alone, faces loss, and struggles to survive. Experiencing similar isolation during filming made those emotions feel more immediate. This had an impact on his mental state. He became more withdrawn and serious. The role demanded a lot from him, and the environment reinforced that intensity. There were moments when tensions rose on set. Conflicts happened, often driven by stress rather than deeper issues. While there are no widely known dramatic breakdowns, the atmosphere was heavy enough that people felt the pressure daily. The experience wasn't just about acting. It became something that affected everyone involved on a personal level. Redford breaks silence. Years after the film was completed, Redford spoke more openly about what the production was really like. His reflections were direct and honest. He described the experience as very difficult, using simple words to make it clear that it wasn't something he looked back on lightly. The phrase, "it was bad," summed up how intense the conditions felt at the time. One of his main criticisms was how demanding the shoot became, both physically and mentally. While he believed in the project, he later acknowledged that the process pushed people further than expected. What made it particularly hard was the combination of isolation, weather, and long hours. Any one of those factors would have been challenging. Together, they created a situation that tested everyone's limits. There was also a clear difference between how audiences saw the film and how it was made. Viewers saw a calm, thoughtful story set in beautiful landscapes. Behind the scenes, it was a struggle to capture those images under difficult conditions. Redford's honesty in later interviews showed a willingness to speak without hiding the truth. He didn't try to present the experience as something it wasn't. He acknowledged both the value of the film and the cost of making it. And just when it seemed like the hardest part was over, the aftermath brought its own unexpected challenges. Immediate aftermath. When filming for Jeremiah Johnson finally came to an end, the dominant feeling on set was relief. Months of working in cold, remote conditions had pushed everyone to their limits. The cast and crew were physically worn out, and simply finishing the project felt like an achievement. For Robert Redford, that relief was mixed with deep exhaustion. He had carried the film on his shoulders, both as the lead actor and as someone strongly invested in its direction. The experience had drained him, and stepping away from the mountains brought a sense of calm he hadn't felt in a long time. When the film was released, the reception was generally positive. Audiences appreciated its quiet style, natural setting, and emotional depth. It stood out from other films of its time because it didn't rely on fast pacing or heavy dialogue. Instead, it offered a slower, more thoughtful experience, which many viewers found refreshing. Despite that positive response, Redford's personal feelings were more complicated. He respected the finished film and what it represented, but the process behind it was still fresh in his mind. Watching the final result didn't erase the hardship he had gone through during production. At that moment, it wasn't entirely clear to him if the struggle had been worth it. There was pride in completing something meaningful, but also a sense that the cost had been high. Over time, he came to appreciate the film more, but immediately after its release, his emotions were mixed and unsettled. As years passed, Jeremiah Johnson began to gain a stronger reputation. Audiences and critics often described it as a peaceful and reflective film. The natural landscapes, the quiet storytelling, and the character's journey were admired and even romanticized. But this public view didn't match Redford's personal experience. For him, the film was tied to cold weather, exhaustion, and constant pressure. While viewers saw calm and beauty, he remembered discomfort and strain. For a long time, he didn't speak openly about this contrast. Part of that silence came from respect for the film and the people who worked on it. Another reason was that actors often avoid criticizing projects that are well received. There is an unspoken expectation to support the final product, especially when audiences connect with it. Still, holding back those thoughts created a quiet burden. The gap between what people believed and what he experienced remained unaddressed for years. Eventually, he chose to speak more honestly. As he grew older, he became more open about his past, including the difficult parts. When he talked about Jeremiah Johnson, he didn't try to change how people saw the film. Instead, he added another side to the story, the reality behind the scenes. This honesty helped others understand that even meaningful work can come from very difficult conditions. The experience of making Jeremiah Johnson left a lasting impact on Redford. It taught him lessons that shaped the rest of his career. Reclaiming control. After years of pressure, long shoots, and personal struggles, Robert Redford began to take a step back and look at how he was living. He had spent a large part of his career reacting to opportunities and expectations. Now, he wanted to make more deliberate choices. One of his main goals was balance. He no longer wanted his work to take over every part of his life. Acting was still important to him, but so were his health and his relationships. He started to think more carefully about how much time he spent working and how much time he kept for himself and his family. This meant turning down projects even when they looked promising. Earlier in his career, he might have accepted more roles without thinking about the long-term impact. Now, he asked different questions. He considered how a project would affect his energy, his time, and his overall well-being. He also moved away from environments that felt chaotic or overwhelming. Large productions with difficult conditions no longer appealed to him in the same way. He preferred settings where there was a sense of control and respect for the people involved. This shift helped him stay grounded and avoid repeating past experiences that had taken a toll on him. Health became a bigger focus as well. The physical strain he had experienced on demanding projects made him more aware of his limits. He paid closer attention to rest, routine, and maintaining a steady pace. Instead of pushing through exhaustion, he learned to step back when needed. Over time, his idea of success changed. It was no longer just about box office numbers or public recognition. He began to measure success by how meaningful a project felt and how it fit into his life. Having control over his choices became more important than chasing constant attention. This shift allowed him to build a career that lasted longer and felt more stable. It also gave him a sense of peace that had been missing during his earlier years in Hollywood. If you want more videos on untold Hollywood stories like this, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for what's coming next.